Welcome back to the NBC Network, iHealth Radio, the iHealth channel, The Works, with your host, Hurricane H. Today, an exciting show, a different angle on the discussions we've always had, and this is going to be a little bit interesting of a concept that's new to me. I mean, I've probably seen it, but I would have not thought about it as being a practice that is very common, and as we're going to discover today. My guest today is first of all, he's an awesome guest. I mean, he's done a lot, and he's worked with some of the biggest, probably enterprises in the nation, and if not in the world, including NASA and other companies. He's worked for many, 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 many years with the Tony Robbins, stuff. So I mean, it's pretty, interesting discussion we're gonna have today, and especially we're gonna talk about the background where our guest today got his start. So without any further ado, I have Dave Albin, the CEO of Firewalk Academy, so that's it. Firewalk, as it sounds. Firewalk, sounds interesting. Walking on fire. Dave, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, Hurricane. I've been looking forward to this, man. So I'm real glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Well, no, my pleasure. Well, so first things first. I mean, I read your bio, and it's pretty impressive how live, plays in our world today, right? Everybody's got a story. Your story is pretty interesting, and many can relate to that story, especially in your early days, and where you wound up and how things turn out, and then how you stumbled into something that made a difference, that changed your life, and it got you to where you are today. So that's really where we're going to start. Sure. And by the way, you and I had a brief discussion. I love what you had said, and we want to highlight today that what we're doing here is a legacy to really share with people and inform people. So Dave, your story started a long time ago when you were, I believe, 11.
11. Well, even just before I was born, it really started there.
All right, that's more interesting. Let's talk about that.
Sure. What happened, Hurricane, was a couple of months before I was born, my biological father, we don't know exactly what happened to him, but he hurt his head. And to save his life, they put a plate in his head. Well, it also caused a tremendous amount of pain. And he used to say to my mom all the time, I don't know how much longer I can take this. And sure enough, man, two months before I'm born, he turns to mom and says, hey, I'm going to the grocery store. We never saw or heard from him again. So we don't know. We can assume that he probably took his own life because, again, he was in a lot of pain from the plate they'd put in his head. So when I'm born to a single mom. She already had 2 boys. She's living with her mother, my grandmother, in a 1-bedroom apartment in Hollywood, California. And we had another cousin living with us. So it was a pretty packed house. And, my mother came from, and I have no problem saying, the greatest generation that's ever walked this planet. Her and her family and her generation went through the Great Depression. And then, of course, when World War II came around, guess what all the women were doing while all the men were off fighting the war? The women were doing everything. Literally, they built jeeps, tanks, munitions, all of it. My mother, my biological mom, was known as Rosie the Riveter, right? And what that meant was she built airplanes for McDonnell Douglas. And so they were a badass bunch of women, man. And without them, guess what? You and I aren't talking right now because the women did everything. I always love this idea. Can women do this and can women do that? Are you kidding me? They can do everything. So that's what I was born into. Well, mom was working at the Roosevelt Hotel. It was a very famous hotel in Hollywood. And she was working her butt off. But it wasn't enough. There was way too many, mouths to feed. And so, bless her heart, when I was 5 years old, she went to her oldest sister, Pat, and said, will you adopt David? And her husband, Bob, they said yes. He was a highly decorated officer in World War II. He was career military, Army, National Guard. And so, boom, they adopted me when I was 5. I left Hollywood, moved to Long Beach, California. And my life was spectacular. Because dad was pretty, he had a really good job, and, they were smart and they budgeted and they knew what to do with money. And we did a lot of camping when I was a kid. We used to go to Yosemite, Big Bear, Lake Arrowhead, Lake Havasu, you name it. We went there. And so everything was great. It was the perfect childhood, literally. And then on the first day of summer, 1964, I'm up early, right? It's summer, man. It's the first day. You know that, like, right? You're all excited. You got your whole summer off. You're going to be doing all kinds of stuff. And I'm sitting in the TV room, and my mom comes in and goes, "David, will you come in the kitchen? Your dad and I need to speak with you." Now, what I think's going to happen is they're going to tell me where we're going to go camping this summer. That's not what they told me. They literally set me down, and my mom put her hand on my arm, and she looked at me and she said, "David, what we need to tell you is we're not your parents." Okay, well, what does that mean? What do you mean you're my parents? That's like going outside and looking at the sky's blue, and they're telling you the sky's not blue. Well, it looks pretty blue to me, right? And so that was a really rough moment, trying to process them telling me that they're not my parents when they've been nothing but my parents my whole life, as far as I can remember, right? Because I got adopted at 5. So I have little thoughts about things that had happened before that, but not much. And so there it was. In fact, my mom turned around and said, "By the way, you know your Aunt Dean?" "Yeah." "Well, she's actually your biological mother." And what was interesting about that, I was like, I don't even like her. And the reason I didn't like her was every time she was around me, she wanted to be next to me. She wanted to sit next to me. She wanted to hold me. She wanted to hug me. She wanted to kiss me. Well, duh, I'm her son. But I didn't know that, right? So it felt awkward. And by the way, I want to be crystal clear about something. She never touched me inappropriately. It was always, she was just right here, right? She wanted to be next to me. And I get it now. I obviously, I understand that now. So that was a real interesting day. Well, shortly after that, probably within 2 weeks, when they adopted me at 5, Hurricane, they swore off drinking. 2 weeks after they told me that, they both started drinking. And it got ugly real fast. This perfect lifestyle turned into quite a shit show. And my dad, Bob, who was raising me, though he was my uncle, he was still my dad as far as I knew. He got violent. He was an ugly drunk, where my mom was kind of a giddy drunk, laugh, carry on. She wasn't, mean or nasty. She was just obnoxiously drunk sometimes. And so that got ugly fast. And they went to the grocery store one day. Now, back in those days, you could leave your kids home. It was no big deal, right? In the 60s, so what? You leave your kids home. They're 11, so what? Right? You call the neighbor across the street and say, "Hey, Joanne, Bob and I are going to the grocery store. David's at home. If he needs anything, can he come knock on the door?" "Well, yeah, sure. Tell him to come over. Tell him to come over now. We'll fix him a fried bologna sandwich," right? That's what we ate back then when we were kids. So when they left, I knew where the booze was. They were hiding it in plain sight. And so I went over to the cabinet, opened it up, pulled it out, and it was brandy. And it was a half gallon of brandy. And I did the unspeakable thing, man. I wanted to know what this crap was, man. Why are my parents turning into these people when they drink this stuff? So out of curiosity, I filled a coffee cup about halfway, smelled it. Oh, it's brandy, right? It's nasty stuff. And boom, I drank it. 11 years old. And you know what, Hurricane? I never had a chance, man. I was an alcoholic right on the spot. I started thinking alcoholically, acting alcoholically. And again, I never had a chance. Well, as I moved through life, by the time I was a junior in high school, they pulled me in one day into the principal's office and said, "Albin, you're out. We're done with you." Now, I didn't care. It didn't bother me a bit. I had that idea that whatever they were trying to teach me in high school wasn't going to change whether I was able to make money or not. I'd already had an entrepreneur spirit running through me. My mom, Pat, that was raising me, she grew beautiful flowers. She could grow anything. She came out of the Depression, right? And so she had this beautiful big thing of flowers, this flower garden in the backyard, which she'd go pick them. And she'd cut them at an angle, not at the bottom, she cut them at an angle. And what that did is it opens up more surface area for water to get into the flower. And then she would arrange them. She could arrange them in beautiful arrangements. She had great eyes for color. And then she put a rubber band around them. She'd stick them in a bucket. And then she'd put a little bit of 7-Up into that bucket. And the magic of what happens with 7-Up and flowers, I don't really know the science. All I know is they last about 2 weeks. And so she sent me out on the street corner and I started selling flowers. And so I started learning how to deal with adults, man. And most of them were men. They try to beat me down on price. I'm like, no, I'm not going to take less. And I'm like, listen, the next guy that pulls up will pay me the full price. Why do I need to discount it to you, right? I'm not doing it. Well, shortly after that, I got a paper route. And if you know anything about a paper route, you are an entrepreneur. You are in business for yourself. 7 days a week, go pick up your papers, fold them, put a rubber band, put them in your saddlebags, load them on your bicycle, and go deliver those bad boys. And if you did a good job, they'd tip you. And so I love my paper route. Then, wasn't finished there. I lived right across the street from a golf course. So here's what I learned about golfers when I was a kid. They suck. They're just all over the place, right? Well, I would ride my bicycle around the perimeter. And guess what I would find? These little white things that turned into money. So I'd collect them. I'd go home. I'd wash them up, get them nice and clean. I'd go back to the golf course. I'd go into the trash can. And the boxes that they came in, I would take them. And then I'd go back and I'd arrange them. I'd put like all the Max Flies, the Titleists, the Wilsons, the Dunlaps. I'd go back into the parking lot of the golf course and sell them back to the golfers, right? So my belief system at a very young age was, and still is, there's plenty of money out there. Go get it. And so that's, where my entrepreneurial spirit started, was at a very young age. Well, when I got kicked out of high school, I literally went and got a job that day in the largest grocery store in the state of California. And I went into an apprentice program shortly after that. And I became a retail clerk, which was part of the Teamsters Union, the truckers union in California. So by the time I was, 17, 18, I was already making over $8 an hour in 1972. I went out and bought a brand new Mach 1 Mustang. I mean, I was doing it. Now, the other thing too is that I was making good money, but it was also feeding my addiction because, I worked the night crew at the grocery store. And so I was taking a lot of amphetamines. And again, by the time I was in high school, I was doing hard drugs, heroin, cocaine, you name it. I was doing it and I was drinking like a fish. Well, that lasted until the early 30s, 3 marriages. In fact, the day that it all shifted for me was June 8th, 1988. When I woke up that morning, I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm in way too much pain. I'm in physical pain. I'm in emotional pain, spiritual pain. And the only thought that I had in that moment was go load your pistol, put a bullet in your head, and your pain will go away. Now, I'm not thinking about heaven or hell. None of that's crossing my mind. However, I'm married to a woman who's got 3 kids. They're my stepkids, and I loved them. I adored them. They were really good kids. And the thought was, you know what? You pull that trigger, yeah, your troubles are over, but theirs are just beginning. You're going to kill these kids. You're going to destroy their life if you pull that trigger. You can't do that. Come up with a better way, pal. Well, the next thing I know, Hurricane, I've got a thought in my head, call Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, what's interesting about that was I don't know where that thought came from because I didn't know anything about AA. I didn't know anybody in AA. I'd never been to AA. Where the heck did that thought come from? Nevertheless, that's what I did. I called AA and I got this beautiful human being on the phone who over the years, I've affectionately, I refer to her as Madge. And the reason I did that is because Madge talked like this. She smoked 2 packs of Pall Mall non-filters a day. Right. So she was a trip, man, and she was kicking my butt. Well, her job answering phones for AA, she was the gatekeeper. So in other words, she's the one who would interview you, and she made a decision whether she would call somebody to come pick you up and get you to an AA meeting. Well, she did. She called a guy named Lauren, and Lauren came and picked me up, and he took me to my first AA meeting. I went to 4 meetings my first day. I went to a 12:30, a 4:30, a 6:30, and an 8:30. And this was an all men's group, by the way. And so when I was there, they gave me a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's called the Big Book. It's what it's called. And on the front cover of the page, they wrote, before you take that first drink, call one of us. And they put their first name and their phone number. And they and they handed it to me. Well, the next day on day 2, my phone rings at like 8 o'clock in the morning. And it's John from AA. And I answer the phone. He goes, "Hey, Dave, good morning. It's John from AA. How you doing this morning?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? How do you think I'm doing? I want to kill somebody. And I might start with you for calling me at 8 o'clock in the morning." And John's a really cool guy, right? He's like, yeah, I hear you. No big deal. He said, "Listen, man, I know where you live. We talked last night. Here, let me do this. Let me come over. Let me pick you up. Let me take you to breakfast. And I'll take you to an AA meeting." And that's how it started. I'm threatening this guy, and he comes and picks me up and loves me when I couldn't love myself and took me to another AA meeting. Well, after 2 days, it turned into a week. And after a week, it turned into a month. Then I got one and once I got to a month, I got one of these, a medallion. It said 1 month of continuous sobriety. And then I got one for 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 1 year. And this last June 8th of this year, Hurricane, I picked up one that says 35 years. So I never had another drink or another drug after my very first AA meeting. Well, what happened there was at the same time I'm getting sober, I had insomnia. So I was up late at night all the time. Well, there I am, 3 o'clock in the morning one night, and there he is, Mr. Enthusiasm, right? A young Tony Robbins is selling personal power on an infomercial through Gunthy Ranker Corporation. And I couldn't stand him, man. He's all motivated, and I'm like, and I'm not motivated, right? I'm in a lot of pain. But he said a couple of things that got me. The one thing he said was up front, he said, "We'll do more to avoid pain than we will to gain pleasure." And I remember thinking, well, my God, that's why I drank. I was drinking and using drugs. I was either, trying to get rid of pain or I was trying to chase pleasure, right? So it made a lot of sense to me. But here's what really got me. He said the driving force in our life, the way we make decisions, is that we do it out of inspiration or desperation. And I'm like, man, I'm pretty desperate. Maybe I should listen to this guy. So I bought his program, Personal Power. It's a 30-day program. So they send it to you and it comes up in a big box, right? And it comes on these little white things. This is 1988, by the way. Came on these little white things called cassette tapes, right? Some of your listeners aren't going to know what those are, right? You got to look.
I got a few of those somewhere.
Yeah, you got a few, right? You aged yourself, didn't you?
It's all good, baby.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, if you go to the Smithsonian, they're right next to reel and 8-track tapes. So, anyway, I plugged them in. I went through the program. I did what Tony taught me to do, and it worked. And so I started making a lot of changes in my life. I was in a bad marriage. I had to get out. I had to start planning my exit strategy. I started losing weight. I started working out. I started my own business. I started a chauffeur school in Washington, D.C. And so things were really, really looking up, right? I'm sober. I'm living my life one day at a time. I'm helping other alcoholics achieve sobriety. I'm now getting immersed in the personal development industry, and my life was changing so quickly I couldn't even tell you. And then one of my buddies was like, he's in AA. He's like, "Dude, what's going on with you, man? Something's weird. You're all motivated and you're getting all this done." He said, what's going on? Something outside of AA. And I said, well, yeah, I'm very grateful to be in AA. And I've been listening to this guy named Tony Robbins. And he goes, "Tony Robbins? I know who Tony Robbins is. I bought his book, but I never read it." It's like, okay, well, how often does that show up in your life, right? And so I go, "Look, man, I've got the program. It's on cassettes. I've gone through it. I'll loan it to you if you promise me you'll listen to it." He said, "Absolutely, I promise." So he did. Well, 7 years later, we're in 88, 89, 1995 comes around. Dan calls me on the phone like a little kid, like we're going to go to the county fair with excitement, calling me. He's like, "Hey, man, did you know Tony Robbins is coming to town?" I'm like, "No, of course. I don't have any idea." And he's like, "Dude, come on. You've got to go with me. You got me into this guy," right? So I'm like, "Fine, I'll go. Yeah, I can go." And he goes, "Great. Let me call you back." He calls me back like an hour later, and he goes, "Done. We pick up the tickets at will call, and here's what they told us to do. Number 1, hydrate. You've got to drink a lot of water. Number 2, bring snacks because you're going to spend a lot of time in the room. Be ready to play full out and bring a good attitude. Well, Dan, how much was the ticket? $695 in 1995. Well, what's that worth today? Like what? 1.3 million? I mean, I don't know. It's a lot of money back then, right?
Was.
And and just as he's getting ready to get off the phone, right? He goes, "Oh, by the way, wait, I forgot to tell you something. We're going to be doing a firewalk." And I remember thinking, "Oh, hell no." Right? Now I'm not saying anything to Dan. I'm processing up here. I'm like, "No, I ain't doing that." And I don't even know what a firewalk is. Interesting, right? I'm saying no to it, not doing it. I don't even know what a firewalk is, but it didn't sound like fire and walk went together. So I'm saying no. And fear had been running my entire life up until, this whole next process, right? And so I'm like, yeah, sure, Dan, no problem. Firewalk. Yeah, see you then. Well, okay. I knew, like, okay, when you get there, you don't have to do it. Just, watch these people burn their feet off, kind of a thing, right? This will be fun. And so the big day comes, right? And we get there, and Tony takes the stage at 2:00 in the afternoon. Well, the next thing I know, Hurricane, it's after midnight. We've been in a room with Tony Robbins for 10 hours. Remember, bring snacks? Yeah, if you don't, you'll starve to death. And so it's after midnight. All of a sudden, Tony goes, "Take your shoes off." And I'm like, "Oh, no, pal. I see where you're going with that. Well, I'm not doing that. I'm not falling for that shit. No way." Well, I got a problem. I'm in a room with 3,500 people, and guess what they're doing? They're taking their damn shoes off, right? And I'm like, "People, no, you're falling for it. Don't go towards the light, right?" And so now I'm like, "Okay, so what are you going to do? You're going to walk out there with your shoes on, and everybody's going to be pointing at you? Nah, we ain't having any of that." So I'm like, "Just take your shoes off, get out there, and go hide in the back. You'll be fine. No one's going to know." Well, other than me, right? So, it gets a little worse because when Tony gets everybody, 3,500 people walking out into this big parking lot for the firewalk, he gets them to start clapping and chanting. So everybody's walking out there going, "Yes, yes, yes." And I'm walking out there going, "No, I ain't doing this." Well, it gets worse because when you physically get out there, he's got African drummers. So now here's the tempo, right? Dun, 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 dun. Okay, it's a dog and pony show unlike anything you've ever seen in your life. I've never seen anything like it in my life other than a Tony Robbins seminar. And so when you get out there, right, there's over in the corner, there's this giant fire. It's huge. It's probably 35 feet wide. It's every bit of 70 feet long. And they've been adding wood to this, just cords and cords of wood all day. It's been burning all day, probably 10 hours. Well, at the end of the evening, guess what it does? It renders. And you've got this big, giant blue flame pile of coals. It's gorgeous, right? Well, how do you walk 3,500 people? Well, what you do is you lay out lanes of sod, of grass, 3 feet wide, 18 feet long. You take wheelbarrows over to that big pit. You load those coals in steel wheelbarrows. Then you bring a wheelbarrow in between those two lanes of sod. And then you take a flathead shovel and you sprinkle those coals on top of that grass. And that's what you walk up, right? Well, I'm having none of it. I am all the way in the back as far as you can get away. Well, Tony Robbins knows that the reason he chose Firewalk is because he knows it's one of the most life-changing paradigm shift experiences on earth. And he doesn't want you to miss it. So he knows there's people like me, right? He knows where we are. We're hiding in the back. So what does this guy do? He trains people to come find you. So I'm nestled in the back thinking I got it all figured out. Nope, I sure don't. Next thing I know, here comes this guy. And he makes eye contact with me. And I know Robbins taught him, when you make eye contact with these people, don't take your eyes off them. And so now he's just coming at me. And I'm thinking, what? Hey, dude, no, I don't think so. And so he gets like 20 feet from me. And he looks at me really funny, like there's something wrong with me, right? Which there was. And he said, "Hey, man, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. All good here, man. Move along. Nothing to see here." And he says, "Well, hey, man, are you going to walk tonight?" And in a really nasty voice and tone, I said, "Absolutely not. What do you think I'm hiding back here for?" Right? And all of a sudden, here's a stranger, man. I don't know who this guy is, Hurricane. I don't. I wish I did. because that guy right there asked me one question and it changed my life forever. And, I wouldn't have gone on to, work for Tony for almost 20 years. Google, NASA, Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, Microsoft, Heineken, next thing you know, I'm on the EMBC network podcast, right? And without him, I'm not here. And he said, well, wouldn't you at least like to watch? And I thought, yeah, I would. I'd like to go watch these people burn their feet off. Let's do that. That'll be entertaining. And he says, well, listen, man, you can't see anything from way back here. And he's right. He's telling the truth. I got 3,500 people standing in front of me. I can't see anything but a wall of people. So he said, look, just get in line. Right? Just get in line, and eventually you'll get up there where you'll be able to see it. And so I did. I took the bait. Okay, he's telling the truth. And I got in line. And all of a sudden I'm walking along, and I'm just kind of, and remember, the drums are going, people are chanting. Now they're firewalking. And so when they get to the celebration end, they're screaming and yelling. It almost sounds like they're getting hurt, but they're not. They're screaming. They're exhilarated, right? It's unbelievable. So the drums, the clapping, the chanting, the screaming, and I'm walking along, and all of a sudden this guy comes up to me and he whispers in my ear and he goes, he knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go. And pew, this guy just disappeared into the night, right? I'm like, what was that? What was that about? That's just bizarre. Well, I'm walking along, and all of a sudden I get to a point. I got 1,000 people in front of me. I still can't see anything, but I can see at an angle. And Hurricane, they're doing it. They are walking on fire. Every race, every creed, every color, they're doing it. And now I'm so mesmerized. I'm in a trance. I'm staring at this, watching this. It's kind of like, you see a car accident, and you're not supposed to look at it, right? But you can't take your eyes off it. Well, that's kind of what's going on. And I'm watching, all of a sudden, boom, guess where I am? I'm at the front of the line. Yeah. And now I'm staring down at that fire lane, and the coals are there. They're bright red. There's a wheelbarrow there. I can feel the heat coming off of it. And my heart is pounding so hard. I know it's going to jump out of my chest. I'm scared to death. Well, there's a trainer standing right there in the lane. And he goes, eyes up. All of a sudden, now I bring my eyes up, right? He scares the crap out of me. Well, I'm in a room for 10 hours with Tony, and guess what he teaches you to do? Keep your eyes up. Don't stare at what you fear. The reward is right over there at the other end of the fire lane, the celebration end. That's what you want to look at. So I'm standing there, all of a sudden the trainer goes, squeeze your fist and say yes. And I went, yes. And he went, stronger. And I went, yes. Well, he could tell. He's a trainer. He's doing this all the time. Am I leaving a lot on the table? You better believe I am. Am I in a peak state? Nope. Did he know it? Yep. So what's he do? He gets like right here and screams at me, stronger! So I threw my hands in the air and I screamed at the top of my lungs, yes. And he goes, go, go, go. Pooh. I took off. Remember, the guy comes up. He knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go. I did. Well, here's the first thing I learned about firewalking. And I think everybody learns this when they firewalk for the first time. When you take the first step, oh, you'll take the second, third, fourth, and fifth. I promise you, right? You're not going to stop on that fire lane. Well, Tony positions two people at the end, and they lock arms, and they catch you, right? And they're like, stop, wipe your feet and celebrate. And I'm wiping my feet, and I'm celebrating, and all of a sudden it dawns on me, I've burnt myself really bad. And I look at my foot. It's dirty, but there's no burns. Oh, it's my other foot. Yeah, same thing. It's dirty. There's no burns. So I just walked across coals that are 1,000 degrees. I did not burn myself. And in that moment, I had no clue how I did it. None, right? I think we've all done something like that, right? We do something really cool, really awesome, and we're not really sure how we did it, but we take credit for it. That's right. You're like, yep, that's me. That's this guy. I walked on fire. And it was exhilarating. It's your confidence level, the belief about who you are and what you can do just goes boom, instantaneously. I mean, it's like, okay, where's the bus? Let's go climb Everest, people. We got this, right? And so it's magical, man. It's just a magical moment in everybody I've ever seen firewalk. Well, here's where it gets really interesting, though. the next day. This is a 4-day event. This is day one, the night of. So now we're coming into day two of the 4-day event. And we're standing in the foyer. There's 3,500 people getting ready to go into the venue. I've never seen anything like it in my life. It was the most beautiful interaction between people that I've ever seen or I've ever witnessed. People were laughing, they're crying, they're hugging, they're communicating humanistically. You know, you don't see that in life. You just don't. And so it was beautiful to watch. And so I'm sitting there watching it going, really? Did we all drink the Kool-Aid last night? Because what happened is collectively, our self-belief, our self-confidence, and our self-worth all went up at the same time or within, you know, a couple of minutes each other, right? And so there's a calibration of that. So our vibration got raised. And so there we are the next morning vibrating at a really, really high level. And that's exactly what Tony wants. Well, later in the event, I met one of Tony's trainers, a guy by the name of Ted Macy. Ah, what a guy. I love this guy. And his wife, Mary. Both were trainers for Tony back in the day. And so I'm talking to him and I'm like, hey, man, you get to come and play in this environment on a regular basis? He goes, yeah, I sure do. I go, this must be insanely awesome, man. He goes, oh, yeah, it's incredible. And if you can get yourself in this environment, do it. And he says, see those people standing over the black shirts with the pink writing on the back? Yeah. He goes, dude, they're volunteers. They're just like you. They came to an event, did a firewalk, and have come back to volunteer, to give back, to serve. And he says, so listen, man, when you get home, call Robbins Research, call and ask them for a volunteer crew application. I did. They sent me one. I filled it out. I sent it back. And about 9 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail that said, Dave Albin, congratulations. You've been selected to crew with the Anthony Robbins Company. Well, color my ass happy, man. There I am. Next thing I know, there I am in Fort Lauderdale at a Tony Robbins seminar as a volunteer crew member. And, so my foot's in the door, right? So this is where it started. And then from there, I crewed about probably 5 or 6 times, I believe. And I paid my way every time, right? So it's costing me $2,000 or something close to that. I got to pay my airfare. I got to pay for my hotel. I got to pay for all my transportation, got to pay for food, parking, all of it, right? Well, my wife is like, who the hell is this Tony Robbins guy, right? Because I'm spending all this money and she has no idea who Tony Robbins is. Well, shortly after that, I got offered a subcontractor's position. I had a security background and a military background. So they put me on the security team, helping to take care of Tony's celebrities. So then they started paying my way, my hotel, and all of that. And they paid me, a real small salary. Well, they did a very smart thing. They gave me a free ticket so I could bring my spouse. And I did. I brought her. She came. She went through the event. And after the event, we were walking on the beach talking about it. And she goes, okay, I get it. I drank the Kool-Aid too. You want to run with this Tony Robbins guy? Roll, baby. Get with him. He's awesome. I get it. Go. So she opened the door wide open. So that was all going down in 95, 96, 97, right? And then I became the assistant captain for the fire team as well as the security team. And then in 2003, man, my life forever changed. Tony offered me the fire captain position. And what that meant was I was in charge of all of his firewalks globally. And in addition to him giving me that position, he also paid for my family because I homeschooled. He paid for my family to go on the road with us. So my 2 kids were on the road, 6 and 9 years old, traveling with me, their dad, and Tony Robbins. Their first event was Sydney, Australia. Right? Wow. Yeah, nuts. That was in 2003. In 2005, we set the world record. We went to London. We went out to the Docklands at the Excel Center, and we firewalked 12,300 people. Now, I say it's a world record. I want to be crystal clear about something. Guinness Book was not there, right? So it wasn't recorded. But here's what I can say. That was the largest firewalk that's ever been done in the world, right? The only thing that's ever come close to that is another Tony Robbins seminar with like 10,000, right? So that all went down in 2005. And then from then all the way to 2014, I'm on the road with Tony, traveling the world. an absolute magnificent experience for me and my family. And then in 2014, I had another very dominant thing happen in my life. I'm driving down the road, my phone rings, and it's Google. Okay, what can I do for you, Google? Well, are you the Dave Albin that does the firewalks for Tony Robbins? Yeah. Well, if you're not under any contractual obligation or non-compete, we'd like to talk to you about hiring you. Really? Okay. Well, homeboy's a free agent. You know, what you got, right? Google's calling you driving down the road. This, come on, this is a fairy tale. It doesn't happen. It's total bullshit, right? Come on. Nobody's going to believe this, right? And so we started talking, and what they told me was they had a graduation coming up for 148 of their executives that went through a really intense curriculum. And so they wanted to do the firewalk. Well, found out they wanted to do it during the day after their graduation and after lunch. And I said, guys, I can't do it during the day. That's a safety issue, man. I got to be able to see the color of those coals. I know the temperature by the color. Can't do it. Tell you what I could do to still serve this. I could do a glass walk. They're like, a glass walk? You mean walking on broken glass? That's right. They're like, ooh, tell us about that. So they wanted the experience, right? Get it? Right? They wanted to anchor in this experience. So that's what they create. This is Google. They know what's going on. They know how to change people's lives. They know that what doesn't challenge you doesn't change you. This is Google, for crying out loud. So we ended up doing the glass walk. Whoa, when I got out to Mountain View for the first glass walk the night before, we were having dinner, and I could tell something was up, right? They wanted to ask me something. And finally the girl goes, Dave, can we ask you a question? And like they were a little reluctant in asking me. I said, yeah, of course, you can ask me anything. They said, well, there's a clip in a movie we'd like to show before we bring you on stage. I'm like, okay, what is it? They said, there's a scene in Die Hard where Bruce Willis has to run across the broken glass and his feet are all bloody. Can we show that? And I said, you're my kind of people. Heck yeah, show it. It's going to scare the hell out of them. And they said, well, there's one more thing. There's a song by Annie Lennox that says walking on broken glass, right? Can we play that as we bring you out of the green room onto the stage? And I said, yeah, absolutely. Well, hurricane from there, man. I went back the next year to Google. And the next thing I know, I'm at NASA, Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, Microsoft, Heineken, Remax, Y.M.C.A. I'm being asked to speak at high schools, junior high schools, the EO organization, the Entrepreneurs Organization, incredible group of individuals who support entrepreneurs. They've got 198 chapters all over the world. Incredible organization. I did 5 gigs for them last year alone, and I've already got 2 bookings for this year, for 2024. So coming up. So yeah, so there I was, man. And, so I started Firewalk Productions as the founder and the CEO in 2014. And no pun intended, but we've been going hot and heavy ever since.
Oh, man. Well, I don't know what to say, man. I'm literally speechless right now. I usually talk a lot. You kind of like, I'm just like, I don't know where to start, man. It's a lot. I mean,
yeah.
For anyone watching and listening right now, I mean, this 36 minutes of you describing your life story from the inception or pre-inception, literally,
yeah.
to this moment. It's just tremendous value. I mentioned legacy,
yeah.
And there's so many lessons learned from your story, right? First things first. Many people can be and probably have been in what you have been as a child, or even through your parents' experiences.
Yeah.
And by the way, there are probably millions, not thousands, of children that potentially discover your story at a certain age, whatever the age may be, 5, 6, 10, or even more.
Yeah.
And I've had actually a few guests that actually experienced that in their own life, as when they discovered that their mom was not their mom, but then eventually their mom was their mom. It's just one of those stories, right? The fact that your dad left, that your biological dad left, and then you were pretty much with your other dad, but you didn't realize until you were older. And then the idea of addiction and how it went from just experimenting on something that you've discovered in because your parents were into it, you kind of picked up that one, and how it kind of got you in a bad way, if you want to call it, which by the way, it does. I mean,
Yeah.
alcohol and drugs, they don't have good outcomes no matter how you slice it. I haven't heard someone who told me who can even claim like, hey, I got great fun with alcohol and drugs and everything's peachy. It's gonna take a toll. I mean,
Right.
think about it. Right?
Exactly.
It's gonna take a toll on your health. It's gonna take a toll on your life, your family, your finances, and that's if you don't get into a bad, a super bad habit, maybe in crime and everything else, or drugs, or I mean, jail, and eventually even death. So that's that.
There was some of that. There was some of that. But I'm going to choose not to talk about it.
I listen, and you don't even have to. I mean, we know that when you go into this drugs, I mean, you got to deal with drug dealing. You got to deal with the law. You're going to deal with a lot of things that can happen, and it can be very, devastating. And some people they don't come out of that cycle. It's bad.
No.
You were very lucky, and by the way, you made a call, and whatever it is that got you into that, make the phone call to the AA. That's something that changed your life. And that first, and by the way, you said something about John calling you the next morning. Yeah, I have to say, like, these are people that have been in the same shoes, right? They understand. Yeah. No matter how bad you have it, they've been there, and that's where they're doing the work they do because they want to give back. And that's always something that you admire with people who have experiences there. They've been saved themselves, and they want to save others if they could. And whatever it is, they're prepared to actually take upon or take on. So that's so again, I want to thank this dude, and I don't know this dude, but I'll thank him on behalf of, and any dude like him or do that actually has helped people to get from a bad point to sobriety and to success. Now that's just one piece. The other thing that I was going to talk about that I think that is worth discussing also for audiences is your entrepreneurship skills and spirit from day one. So you had you're like had two characters in you. There's this character that's being kind of wasted in a way, but there's deep inside there's this great gem, and that great gem is that person that was willing to do the business and do things and always looking to make things, and you made things happen. I mean, when you're talking about getting that car, that's a super hot car in that time frame, and making not minimum wage at that age and all the stuff. That's actually for a lot of people, that's something that they strive and thrive for, as they age, but not at the early end. So you were able to achieve. You're an achiever regardless of all the circumstances. And that's another element that I want to highlight is that there are people that will find any excuse about circumstances, and there are people that no matter what circumstances, they'll still thrive no matter what. And they'll find ways. You did find ways. You didn't sit there and like, oh my God, life sucks. What the hell? You took some steps, and those steps led to other steps and so on and so forth. And this is the thing that we need to be aware of, folks, as you watch or listen to the show. You just got to take that first step. And believe me, it's going to lead to a second, third. You're going to go right. You're going to go left. You never know who you're going to meet. Now, in your case, look, I mean, you wound up at a Tony Robbins. And by the way, hats off to Tony Robbins. I mean, he's a legend. He's changed lives. He still is doing the work out there.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I still follow his work, and
I'm going. Yeah, he's doing another Firewalk in Dallas. He invited me to come. I haven't seen him in years, and so he's got a live event, another Firewalk in Dallas next month, second week of November. So I'm going to Dallas to go to it. So I'm excited about that.
Well, thank you for sharing. But here's the thing, right? So Tony not only helps people, right, in general, for people to come through and be motivated, be inspired, and I love what you said, inspiration or desperation. Both of them are superpowers. You get inspired by someone, or you are so desperate that you'll take whatever it takes. And frankly, right. I mean, you said something about your biological dad that he wanted to stop the pain. Desperation can lead you to extreme measures.
Yeah.
And sadly, that's what happened there. Yeah. On the flip side, desperation also got you to potentially save your life. Now, you were also at the brink of ending your life. And that's the other thing. Like some people, when you lead the way of alcoholism and addiction and drugs and stuff, there's a lot of chance that you might wind up in that point of like, this is it for me. I'm done with the world. I am pro-life. I hate, people taking their lives. I hate wars. I hate all this stuff. And I can tell you, folks, life is precious. Life is beautiful. There's plenty of positivity we can give out there and we can help. Don't think that there is a way, there's a solution. So if you know someone out there that is suffering, help them, figure out a way to help them, give them a resource. I mean, not just 988. I mean, there are resources out there. You have AA, you have other organizations that help. You got podcasters out there are talking and doing the talk. You have books and so on. There's therapy. There's all kind of stuff that can help people. But if you see someone that is not in a good place, reach out. Don't say like it's not my business, because that's really sometimes where people, they don't find anybody to support them. I was talking to someone on another show, and an example he gave was that this dude was also contemplating, end of life stuff, and he was just talking to someone, and that person did not answer them. He was just looking for someone to listen to them, and that person was listening, and that changed his mind about taking their life away, right? So there's so many things that we can take as lessons of life that we from, at least from your story, Dave, it's beautiful stuff that we need to just make sure that we highlight and really take home with us, because at any given point, life can turn ugly, and life has ups and downs. And don't sweat it. Don't think that you got it, that it's always going to be peachy. There's a point that you never know. I mean, we have pandemics, we have wars, we have things, financial, crises. All this stuff can happen, and your life can turn upside down. And so you need to be able to face those elements. And sometimes you need a help, a resource, whatever the case may be. So you found Tony Robbins's, stuff, and one of the experiences. I mean, like you are talking about the firework, your first, how you like you're talking, and I'm getting actually the goosebumps, because I'm not sure if I can even face that reality personally. I mean, it is something that when you think about it, if you're watching and listening, I mean, believe me, I can see fireworks. I've seen that in movies. I've seen that in cartoons, but doing it in person, I haven't seen that. And I don't even think that I'm able to do it, but I know I can do it because people are doing it. And it's funny because there is a science to it. And there is as you said, there's a temperature, there's all stuff. If you run through it, whatever, it's the goal that your brain is actually focused on something totally different. Those are things. If you think about the fire, you're going to be on the fire. If you think about the goal, you want to get to the goal. And that's real life. There are going to be a lot of fires under our way. And metaphorically speaking, there's a goal that you go after. And no matter what the fires that are under your feet, you're going to go over them. You're going to just run through and you're going to pass. That's just another way to look at it. But the fact is, it's just unbelievable. Now, that changed your life. But not only that, it changed your life in perception, in achievement and result drive, and all that stuff. But also, you just happen to have some background that allowed you to be part of that experience. And here's the thing: another thing you said that's powerful that people can take from this show today. You volunteered, but you see, you volunteered, but you put money. I mean, sometimes you volunteer, you don't get paid, but you don't put any money. But you not only volunteered, you invested. People may think like, why am I going to do that stuff? You gain twice. You gain through the experience and the giving back. And you also eventually proven success by being there over and over. You were noticed. You were given a shot at the next level. At the next level, eventually you became the captain worldwide. That gave you the whole world experience. I mean, even your family now has been taken, around the world. And that's a great thing for your kids. By the way, homeschool is a great way to, sometimes to teach. Nothing against the schools, but if you're really on the road, there's going to be a very difficult thing to do it, alive. So that's a great way. But it's also an experience for your children, and for that purpose. And then you learned this art that you've developed yourself, and now here you get Google. I love what you said. Google calls you. I mean, Google is big. Let's call it for what it is. I mean. And Google is, when you spoke about Google, I thought about the internship, the movie.
Oh, right. Yeah. Right.
So, but that's what Google looks like. I mean, that's really Google, right? It's that kind of atmosphere. It's about performance. It's about being creative and innovative and stuff. And yes, they look at things that are different. This is different. I mean, walking on fire is not something that an average person is going to tell you, hey, let's do this. But, I've been in the corporate world, and you always try to find something unique for your leadership training or for your people to get them, especially in the sales world or like people that are like, achieving.
Yeah, because what doesn't challenge you doesn't change you. You put somebody on stage and let them talk. That's not going to change their life. That's not how a Navy SEAL becomes a SEAL. How does a Navy SEAL become a SEAL? You put their happy ass in the water off the coast of San Clemente at 3:00 in the morning and let them swim with 9 different man-eating sharks. That's what builds character. So, Google knew that. Google knew that they wanted to create an experience to anchor in that graduation. We did it with the glass walk. They wanted to do it with the firewalk. And so company CEOs know this, right? They know that they need to create something that shakes up the nervous system. So, like up to the point when I firewalked, fear had taken everything from me, Hurricane. That's what was happening. So what did it mean to me? Forget everything and run. Well, after the firewalk, it completely changed. I went from, everything and run, to face everything and rise. And that's been the theme ever since. So that firewalk changed my life that quickly. Now, I know we were talking in the show, people know a thing about firewalking. Look, it's been around for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
And just because you don't know anything about it, people don't know. Well, that doesn't mean that it wasn't there, because it was. Because you can go back and you can see the cultures, right?
Yeah,
let's take the Tahitians. The people of India, the Polynesians, the Hawaiians, the Native American Indians, the Portuguese, the Spaniards, the Indo-Europeans. The Indo-Europeans used to do a firewalk every night before the men would go into battle. And you had to do a firewalk or you weren't allowed to go into battle. And if you did that, you dishonored your tribe and your family. So, Viktor Frankl, I think, gave us the greatest example of how we create our life and the stories we create, right? We orchestrate our own life with the stories that we make up about everything that happens to us. I don't care how good it is. I don't care how bad it is. We create the story. We're in charge of that. And Viktor Frankl, right? Man's search for meaning. There he was, Auschwitz, every day. They killed his family. They assassinated his family right in front of him. You're naked. You're standing outside. It's freezing cold. You probably haven't eaten in days. And every single second, you're wondering, am I going into the chamber today? Every day. So you cannot even imagine how much stress is going on in your life when those people were in Auschwitz. However, here's what Viktor figured out. You can take everything from me. Take my clothes, no food, naked, kill my family, take everything from me. But there's one thing you can't take from me. And he figured it out. And that's my attitude. I have to give that up. You can't take it from me. I have to relinquish it. And so what did he do? He created purpose. And the purpose was someone has to tell this story. And so he got out. And that's what got him out, was that purpose. And so he could write the book. Same thing in life, no different. We don't have to go through something that hard, hopefully. However, it's still the same system, because where intention goes, energy flows. And so that's why the Firewalk experience is so powerful. Now, you said something, I'm so glad you said this and you brought it up, and it's about the legacy and all that. Because where I'm going now, yeah, I firewalked, Tony and I have firewalked to 500,000 people. So I don't need to go down that road anymore. I've had the biggest companies in the world come to me. I'm good. That's great. I've got all the notoriety. I've gotten all the attention. I've had all the significance. That's really great. And I'm over that. That's not what I want anymore. I'll tell you what I want. It happened because of podcasting. I just got into podcasting in the last 6 months. One of the girls that interviewed me several months ago, we got into talking after the show. She had a gala coming up for the Marines, 300 Marines. And she said, Dave, what's your price? So it's $197 a person with a 100-person minimum. She went, oh, shit, we can't afford you. I said, wait a minute, what are you talking about? She goes, well, I think a firewalk for veterans would be phenomenal. And it was kind of like the light bulb went on. And I said, well, wait a minute. What if I do it pro bono? In other words, I'll tell you what, you take care of my team. You pay for them to get them here, feed them, put them in an Airbnb, get me down there, cover all the supplies. I'll waive my fee and give me a shot at those Marines. And so then that night when I woke up in the middle of the night after thinking about this, and here's what came to me. And I love being able to share this in your show, and that was the Do No Harm Firewalk. So give me veterans and give me first responders. By the way, the death rate on veterans right now is 22 a day. That's not accurate. It's more like 40 because they only count them if they leave a note. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to have them bring them in. I'm going to set them down and they're going to take an oath. I'm going to have them raise their hand to promise to do no harm. Now, these are military veterans. So when they make a promise, they keep it, right? And why are they committing suicide anyway? What's the reason behind it? because when they're over there, they're protecting each other every day. They're keeping each other alive. Next thing you know, they come home and they're fragmented. They're everywhere. They lose connection with all those people. Next thing you know, depression seeps in. Next thing you know, alcohol seeps in. Next thing you know, drugs seep in. And next thing you know, they have no purpose. They're taking their own life. Well, I'll reverse that with the Firewalk, because I'm going to have them, raise their hand and take an oath. Now, here's where it's going to get interesting for them. I'm going to take the board break experience, right? It's a martial arts thing. You break a board with your bare hands. Real simple. Any martial art studio, dojo, they do it all the time. To go from one belt to another, you break a board. It's how they graduate. So here's what I'm going to do, though. I'm going to have them take that board, and I'm going to have them write anything that they need to move towards on the front of the board. Anything they need to move away from, I have them write it on the back of the board. And then I have them write anybody's name on that board that they're in conflict with. So in other words, if forgiveness and reconciliation is part of that relationship, it stops tonight. Stop carrying around resentments about another human being. It's not the way you move yourself forward in life. Let it go. It ends tonight. Then here's where it gets interesting. I have them write anybody's name on the board that they've lost. So what does that do? That creates a rite of passage. That allows them to bring anybody they lost over there in Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever they are, to bring that energy into that moment. We take them out to the fire. There's a fire going outside. We set up board break stations. They break their board. We walk them in a circle. We get them together. Then we firewalk them. Then they come back and they throw the board onto the fire. But there's one more thing that we do, and that is we calibrate their hearts. How do you do that? So you put everybody in a heart hug. In other words, normally we hug this way. You do it the opposite way now. And you put your heart on top of their heart. You close your eyes and you take 3 cleansing breaths. And typically, Hurricane, when you go into or come out of that second breath, guess what happens? Your heart starts beating the same time as the person you're hugging. And then the next thing you know, you do that 3 or 4 times, you get everybody's heart to beating at the same time. So when that happens and that takes over, now you've got them. And now one of the companies that I love, who's helping me with this, is the Zippo lighter company, right? So they're going to make a 1941 replica of the World War II lighter that they did back in World War II, and they're going to black mat it, powder coat it, and then they're going to etch into the lighter, "Do no harm." And so we're going to give them one. So Zippo's involved. And then the other thing we give them is one of these. All right. So these are the calls from the Firewalk. So it would say on here, I did the Do No Harm Firewalk in 2024. So they'll have these as well. The other thing we're thinking about doing too, which we're going to do actually, is we're going to give them a medallion, just like I got an AA, that says, we're going to put some stuff in there that talks about their oath, that they promise to do no harm, right? And then we get them into doing other things. Number one, when you transform somebody's life like that, what are they going to do? They're going to go home and we're going to tell them, call your fellow vet or call your fellow first responder. Get them to an event where we can do this for them. And once we get enough momentum going with this, I think we have the potential, Hurricane, to save thousands and thousands of men and women's lives. Now, what does that mean from my standpoint? I'm putting it out there. If you're a company and you'd like to be part of this and have your name branded out there in front of these vets and these first responders, get a hold of me. Let's talk.
I have to say, this last piece that you've covered, it's touching a lot of people right now, listening and watching. When you think about it, you're right. I mean, you mentioned the vets, and there is a high rate of suicide, and people are just taking their lives. And you said there's all kind of, I mean, they see atrocities, there's one, they come back, there's PTSD, there's all this stuff. And I've covered that in quite a few shows. But then the other part, as you said, over there, it's one unit, everybody's literally working together, and pushing and helping and, really backing everybody up. But when you come to the real society back, you're on your own anymore. You don't find yourself. You don't find your footings. And that you're right. People get lost very easily in this society, and it's been actually demonstrated through psychiatry work and all the research stuff. Leads to this. And you're right. There's not enough work to be done to help these folks out there and get this particular formula that you have. And I love what you said about taking the oath, because you're right. They're honorable people and they will
Yep.
actually live to their, oath and promise. They will not, I guess, literally deviate from that. And so whatever that is that you're going to be doing is going to change life. And you're right. You're going to start with a group, and then the next thing is going to be. And by the way, this is also another thing about you. You talk to her. She said, we can't afford it, and then you turned that into an opportunity for
Yeah.
these folks, and then it created a whole different idea to help so many people and build a legacy that potentially it will be the next level of Firewalk and stuff. And I love
It will be.
the concept of board. I mean, I'm in the martial arts. I do break boards, and I
Right.
can tell you, it is fulfilling when you actually just go through that thing and just
Yeah.
get it out. And that's the other thing. Like you want, and I love what you said. You got to put all the negative in there and just dump that stuff, in the
Yeah. Get
fire.
it
Like
out.
that's it. You got to get that stuff from your chest, and that's actually a lot. Veterans, no veterans, people hold on to a lot of bad stuff inside. We have resentment. We have all kind of negative stuff that we, literally accumulate over time. And the best people are the people that have none, no grudge, nothing. You did bad to me. Good luck with life. I'm not going to seek revenge or avenge anything,
Yeah.
or like,
Absolutely.
wish you bad karma as it is. We'll take care of business on its own. But I don't want to be holding to that. That's not going to anchor. It's just going to drags you down, and you will be drowned into it. It's going to get all those feelings, and those feelings
Yep.
potentially would hurt you. And then if you get into it, now you're like literally like bad, in a really bad position and shape. We don't want that. So I love that concept. So
Well,
first of all, I commend you for thinking about it, for
yeah.
for
Thank
the
you.
idea itself.
Well, one of the things in AA's helped a lot with this, Hurricane, for sure. One of the things that's interesting about AA, right in the middle of the 12 steps and the 12 traditions, in the preamble, it says, when anyone anywhere reaches out, I want the hand of AA to be there. And for that, I'm responsible. Well, I took that real serious, because that's exactly what John did to me. He was committed. He was all in, 100%. Yeah, I threatened him, and yet he still came and picked me up and took me to breakfast and to an AA meeting. So, I'm a real intense gatekeeper when it comes to that. So that's a big part. The other thing you were talking about too is I learned in AA, and it's in, I think, chapter 5 or chapter 6. It talks about the spiritual axiom. And what they talk about there is that we leave anger for those that are more qualified to handle it. Alcoholics don't handle anger very well. And it says that if you have a problem with a person, a place, or a thing, guess what? The problem's you. Because you decide whether, you're going to get angry or not. Right. So I say all the time, how do you want to change your life? You want to change your life, change your story. I trick people. You can imagine. So like when I'm on stage, I put a picture of a guy behind me, and it's a guy by the name of Eric Weinmeier. And so the picture is pretty obviously, obvious, the guy standing at the top of Mount Everest. And so I kind of wait. I'll talk for 20 minutes, and I'll say, hey, anybody in the audience out there who can tell me where my buddy Eric's standing? And you'll hear somebody always say, Mount Everest. That's correct. And I want you to tell something else about Eric. That dude right there has climbed the 7 highest mountains on 7 continents on this planet, including Everest, and he got to the summit of all 7. Now, put that boy on a mountain bike, he'll tear it up. Put him in a kayak, unbelievable going down a river. But there's something I want you to know about Eric. He's blind. So you know what? I don't want to hear your bullshit. None. 0. If a man who's blind can climb the 7 highest mountains on this planet, then guess what? Whatever you've told yourself about why you can't have something, it's a story. You made it up. So the bottom line is, you want to create a story about your life, create a masterpiece. And so, it's a beautiful, and it messes with their head back. And I do it on purpose, because I want them to think next time you're having that little conversation in your head about whether you're going to do it or start it or, whatever, ask the girl to get married or, start a business or have kids. I mean, it's all fear. So, again, the fears we don't overcome become our limits. And so I tell people all the time that, like firewalking, I tell them, look, If you decide not to do this tonight, fine. I got no problem with that. We don't want you to do anything you don't want to do, but here's what I'll tell you. If you let fear make the decision for you, oh man, you're in big trouble, because fear's not done with you. It's going to keep doing that to you, because fear is a liar, 100%. Now, granted, fear's there to, keep you from doing dumb stuff and getting ourselves killed, right? So, you just want to make sure from a fear standpoint that it's there to guide you. Just don't let it become your jailer.
Oh, first of all, Dave, I love this the whole thing with Eric, and you're right, man. It's so powerful what you said. There is no reason for anyone watching or listening around the world to not pursue whatever it is that they want to, achieve in this life. The goals out there, the dreams out there, and you just got to go for them. And the biggest piece that stops, as you said, is fear of the unknown, fear of not succeeding, fear of what people are going to do, fear of not having this, the means, fear of this, fear of the other. Yep. And they never get started because they just worry about every single thing. The other part is, to your point, is like the problem, as you said, you have problems with people and places. It is not the places. You could have bypassed the places. You could have completely ignored those people. It's your reaction to everything, to the environment, that makes the decision.
100%.
We make the decisions at any given day. We have a choice. Yeah. I was talking to my son literally today, and I say we have two options. We can go left or we can go right. We can do the bad things or we can do the things. That's everybody's choice. We determine that, and then we will eventually cry about our decisions or be happy about decisions. And you're right. When people, just face whatever. And by the way, as you said, fear is there as a guide. Obviously, we need to have that feeling to understand, to gauge. It's literally just a gauge for us to monitor. But then there are fears that are not really true fears. We put them there. They're like, fictitious fears. I mean, the fact that I'm not going to succeed, that's not fear. It's not going to hurt you. It's going to make, as we say, it's going to make you stronger. If anything, if you fail, it's going to get better. Because I don't believe in failure personally as a concept. I believe that's an experience, another way to learn things, right? So I've already made it in a formula that doesn't impact me. Doesn't matter if I start something, it doesn't work. I just learned how to not do it and do it differently. So I'm okay. I'm always positive about it. So it changed my way thinking of things. So, but what I'm saying is that the fact that we are always afraid of everything. You gave the example of Victor, right? The idea of attitude. Attitude is everything. Your attitude makes a difference. How you deal with the world makes a difference. And sometimes we are human. We will have, emotions. We will have, bad times. We will have. It's just how we deal about it, how we face it. And you're right. Sometimes the only way to face things is to actually embrace them, touch them. Feel like I. This is a true story. I've stated this in a different show where I actually did drown. I mean, I got stuck at sea, and for 2 hours, literally, I was just stranded in the middle of waves and stuff. Got pulled by a rip current, and that was basically ready to go. And I got literally lifted by Coast Guard level, and got snatched from the water, just like you see in the movies. And the guy that did help me, we became friends, and he took me to the same spot where actually that happened. He took me to swim back there in a couple of days. We were actually in the same spot.
Brilliant.
And you know what he told me? We're going there. The reason he said that, if I didn't, I would never touch the water again. I would be afraid of, swimming or being in the water. And literally, I did it while it's still fresh in my mind. The next thing, I know that I can swim. And this happened when I was 18. I don't have fear of the water. I respect the water differently. I would be, I would be cautious about things, but I enjoy it and I understand how it works. And, and that was it. So faced my fear right on the spot. And that's it. And this is not a fear that is without value. I almost lost my life. And that's the highest level of where you have. And most of us are sometimes fearful of things that are not going to hurt you.
I love that. Gosh. Yeah. What a metaphor, right? Because I'm a surfer boy from California. So we know all about riptides, right? Hey. And even when you're on a surfboard, right, that thing starts taking you out. And of course, you learn when you're a surfer to swim parallel with the beach, right? To swim out of it. Mm-hmm. But man, if you don't know that and you're caught in one, you're over. It's done. The chances of them getting you out of that rip, man,
they can't get in. They just can't.
Well, the thing is that it's like that moment for you when I had the pistol. That was a moment for you. That is like, okay, there's a divine purpose for Hurricane. right?
Agree.
Most people die when they get caught in a rip like that, and you didn't. You were saved by grace, right? So, okay. So, what's my gift to the world? Where do I go from here? And that's what's happening to me right now. I'm going to be 70 next year. I take good care of myself. I'm on no medications. I have my rituals every day. It's like I get asked all the time, Dave, what's the first thing you do when you get up in the morning? Make my bed. Absolutely. First thing, always, every day. What's the second thing? Well, I take my shower, and after I take a hot shower, I take a cold shower every day. Do I like it? No. Is it good for me? Does it feel exhilarating? After, yeah, you're reducing all that inflammation. It's really it moves your lymph around in your body. It's really, really healthy for you. One of the things I get asked too is like, so what is it? What's the key? And the key is don't negotiate with yourself. If you say you're going to do something, you say you're going to get up at 5:30 in the morning, go to the gym, then get your happy ass up out of bed and go. Don't sit there and go, well, I'm just going to push the snooze button and sleep for another 10 minutes. No. If that mindset seeps in on you, then you'll start using it for everything. I'll just cut a corner here. I'll just cut a corner there. Because here's what I've learned in my life. And a lot of this came from Tony and the world of personal development. And that is how we do some things. It's how we do everything. Make your life a masterpiece, man. Don't playing small does not serve you. Doesn't serve anything. And that's what happens. And that, and we need right now, the amount of leadership we need in both men and women right now is off the chain. Obviously we have a political system that's just, you got to be kidding me, man. It's got to be the worst thing ever. And, it's funny. I talk to entrepreneurs all the time, and I love saying this to them. And that is, imagine we went to Washington and we took about 90% of the politicians and we kicked their asses to the curb and we filled all those positions with entrepreneurs. Hell, the whole world would be solved by Thursday, right? Because entrepreneurs, you're right. I mean, we know how to fix stuff. We know how to get stuff done. Beautiful thing.
Again, listen, you touched on a couple of things here. I know we're over the hour, but you know what? Hell with it. I love this. So first of all, why try to stay with politics? But I can tell you what you just said is spot on, because you're right. Politics is a game at best. It is a political game, and you have to play the angles and this and the other and this bullshit behind it. Now that's their world. But you're right. Instead of dealing with that, and you have a business entrepreneurship, mind. It's all about solution, about, creativity, about making things happen, and just more opportunities. And that's it. As opposed to who the blame is, who's that pushing this one, the other one. And that's really what the game is. It's all that, and it's all about self, preservation and things like that. And business is leadership. We get it done. That's it. There's no possible, I don't know how to do it. We'll figure the hell out of it. You come with a solution, don't come with a problem. The problem happens, you can't do anything about it. What happened? Let's figure out what happened. Let's avoid that. Let's find. And that's a whole different spirit. And that's the thing. And you come from the world of personal development. This is personal development. This discussion can help someone right now get pumped easily just by listening to you. And that's really the thing. It's a whole different way of thinking about things. I love what you said when you stated about the stuff stemmed from AA, and you showed the actual 35 years of sobriety, coin there, and I love what you said. Now in the veterans program that you're gonna do, you're gonna use the same concept and have that. Those are awards that people literally look up to. I mean, believe simple things. It could be just a certificate of achievement, and it gives a momentum. It's something that you remember. You're like, oh, I was able to achieve something. There you go. That's it.
So what you can do is you have them put it in your hand, and I want you to squeeze it as hard as you can and feel as much pain as possible. Because if you take your life, that's what your family's going to feel. Because you're not killing yourself, you're killing everyone around you. You're here for a purpose. There's no accidents here. So you took an oath, you promised.
Well, thank you.
We're gonna hold you to it, right?
And by the way, Dave, that's another point that's big, is that we always look at us as just being us. There's no us. Me personally is a whole bunch of people around me.
Right.
I affect everybody that is in touch with me, no matter what. So if I take my life, I am affecting other people. If I do bad, I am affecting other people. If I do good, I'm affecting. We influence people one way or the other. So it could be good or it could be bad. What we're doing right now, you and I, we are putting something that is positive in this world. Hopefully, it will touch hearts and people's lives and maybe make them change their way of living or whatever the case may be in a positive way. That's the whole thing. We just want to make sure that someone somewhere is better. And that there is, and that's a feeling that is unique. And anyone watching, if you can help into this aspect of life where you can impact someone in a positive way, there's no reward. You don't even expect things in return. You just do it and you will know that it's happening. I know it's happening. Someone somewhere is benefiting from this today, 10 years from now. I mean, again, your stuff that you've done, all these folks that you got on the Firewalks, over the years, 500,000 or whatever, those people are all, touched by that, and they've all contributed positively somewhere. You don't even know most of these people. You don't even have a connection with these people now. Maybe you do. I don't know. But the fact is, you've touched them. They moved on, and they will never, forget that experience they had,
Right.
and they will continue. That's it. It's there with them, and then they will give that experience to other people. That's the other. They refer other people. They will talk about it. They probably impact. Talking about executives and leaders, right? Whatever that experience. I mean, I've trained teams and things like that, and I've led teams. And when you do exercise like these things, it will impact the next generation of leaders. Now you build other people's spirits and make them different. And you touched something that is important. You talked about the Navy SEALs, for example. You don't get tough. You don't get to be the best of the best by being in the comfort zone. Comfort zone doesn't do it. It's tough stuff or nothing. I mean, it is what it is. Like the example that I always refer to is martial art. That's my world. You don't get to be good at it without getting hurt. I mean, there's no way you're just going to become nicely experienced in the martial arts, any type, without having to get at least a couple of bruises and a few bones and a few sprains. And it takes time. And you know what? You excel with experience. You excel with the tough stuff. Now, if you choose the easy way out, you're never going to be better at it. And that's all there is. Now, I love what you said about your system. You wake up. You have a certain regimen every day. You get up, boom. Bed, shower. You talked about hot and cold showers. That's actually, medically speaking, it's a big thing. I mean, it helps. It is a big thing. And by the way, God bless you, man. You're almost 70. You look like in the 50s easily, so you're looking good, bro. All I have to say, whatever it is, it's working. Keep it up. And I hope that, I get contagious. I get your contaminated, whatever, give me some of that stuff, man. Give me some of that. I need that. Right. But that's really, it's important for people. Again, and by the way, you can probably get the energy from the discussion we have. This is also something that keeps you motivated, keeps you positive, keeps you healthier, physically, mentally. Every time you hear something like this, at least me, this is like you listen to Tony Robbins, I'm listening to you, and to him through you now, and because there's a part of his legacy with you as well. When you think about these things, right? It just keeps going, and it pumps people. And I'm getting pumped. I'm sure I'm going to pump some other people, and I'm going to take this, and I'll be using some of this stuff in a different discussion. And that's how it is. We all kind of feed off each other and help each other in a positive way. And we can do that. And there's a lot of you out there listening, watching that can do exactly that by taking this information, sharing. And by the way, as Dave said, if anyone has a circle of veterans and or you're in the corporate world and you want to be part of this experience, do reach out to Dave, and I'll have the link, to Dave's connection, so you can connect with him directly. And listen, let's help people and help ourselves as well. And, keep some positive in this world. That's all I have to say. Absolutely. Dave, I know we've exceeded time, but with the hell with it, as I said. So any last words of wisdom you want to keep our audiences today with?
Sure. It really comes down to, let's stop looking for heroes and be one. There's a hero living in all of us, and it's there. And, I believe there's a molecule of magnificence inside all of us. I'm talking about helping veterans, and, I'm asking anybody and everybody to come help me. And, there'll be companies out there and they write checks, and some people can do certain things. And, somebody might be listening to this podcast right now and going, Dave, I just don't have the resources right now. I can't do this or I can't do that. Well, here's what you can do. You can go spread the word. you can subscribe to your channel, and then you can copy and paste and go put that on your Facebook. And maybe somebody, watching it there, or some big corporation who needs to spend a lot of money, and they want to get their brand out in front of a really incredible cause like saving veterans and first responders' lives. Boom, look at that. So just do something is what I'd ask.
That's a great advice. And again, I will make sure we highlight that, to our audiences, and hopefully someone who's out there. I mean, listen, I work in the insurance space, and, there's a lot of insurance companies that especially in the government programs, that we work with veterans. That could be an actual ideal type of corporations that can assist. There's so many, healthcare facilities, healthcare, centers or hospital systems. There's so many folks that can really contribute to this cause and really make a difference and help people. I mean, again, saving a life, saving humanity. That's all I can, say myself about this. Dave, thank you so much for being with us, man. I enjoyed this discussion.
Pleasure, man.
It was
you're
great.
Rocking it.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Let's do it again.
Well, definitely, man. You're welcome anytime, dude.
Thanks,
all right, folks. So I hope you enjoyed today's show, and you've gotten a lot of good stuff from Dave today. And please do share the information, share this episode with people, and see if someone, or if you yourself, can help and contribute any way, shape, or form. We'd love to hear from you. Connect with Dave directly. You'll see the link on the description of the show. That being said, American Age, you've been watching The Edge Factor on the NBC network. So we'll be talking soon. New day, new show, new topic. Bye for now.